Yo, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Showdown Strategy Show. Woo! Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, 11-point spread here in Kansas City. Do we get Travis Kelce or do we not? We might. Who knows? Coming off a short week, banging his ankle up and then taping that bitch up, coming back out there and scoring a touchdown. We'll see what happens tonight. But, yeah, what a hell of a... this is no longer your Kansas City Chiefs. We used to do a lot of showdown shows where it would be, oh, okay, so I have to decide between Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Now it's Travis Kelce and literally everybody else. And on the Broncos side, they've decided that Marvin Mims is useless to them, despite them floundering every single week and dropping games. And now you get Javonte Williams back after a 1-week hiatus. So, yes, a lot to get into today. I'm Dave Loughran at Laffy_D on the Twitters, LOUGHY_D, joined by the man himself, Matt Gajewski, at Matt_Gajewski, here to break down yet another showdown slate. What's up, brother?
Excited for this game. It's a little bit greasy, which is my preference for these showdowns, rather than having them on main slate where we probably X out a team like Denver. But yeah, Chiefs, Broncos, it's a divisional game. Sometimes these games get weird, so I'm excited for it, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It's funny. I may have, if this were on a main slate, I may X out everything in this game not named Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, maybe because Kelce's so expensive, you might even X him out.
Right. Well, and also, I don't know what capacity he's going to be able to play in. Understandably, you could use the argument that he came back in that last game and he played and he scored. I think he was targeted 5 times on that drive when he returned. But how many times have we seen these type of ankle injuries get worse in the coming days leading up to a game after you heard it in the game itself and then manage to play through it? Like, we see it all the time.
Yeah, and we see players aggravate ankle injuries. Mahomes he's aggravated ankle injuries previously numerous times. Kelce's now playing a more demanding position in line in the slot where he's going to have to cut. He's one of the toughest players in the NFL for sure, but we don't know if he's going to be able to make it a full allotment of snaps. We'll see, but he's definitely expensive and you got to pay for it.
Yeah, I was the whole Kelce thing. I was listening to their New Heights podcast, which is very good, by the way. It's a very good podcast with him and his brother Jason. And he was saying that he's an old man now, like in football terms, and how he can't do things the way he once did. Because let's not forget, Kelce missed week 1 as well. He's not a guy that really ever got banged up. And now this is the second injury that we've seen from him on the season already, right? Like, not a guy that you'd see often dealing with injuries and being questionable, but he missed week 1. Now, I assume he plays today. We'll see. But let's dive into this. Guys, if you haven't done so yet, take a single second, hit that thumbs up, show us some love here on the NFL Showdown Strategy Show. It goes a long way. But more than anything, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And if you're listening in podcast form, we know you're out there. We appreciate you. If you want to check out our podcast, all of our stuff with shelf life, like all of our strategy shows, and all that stuff goes straight on the podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, and we have podcast exclusive content too. Single entry 3 Max show exclusive extended edition of the strategy show. Ben and I do that every Tuesday. I love it. This week was an awesome episode. Would love for you guys to check it out. It's only on our podcast platforms. Same with the Friday show where we break down the afternoon slate. Even if you have to bookmark it for Sunday afternoon, don't forget that it's over there. All right, you ready to get into this, man? We'll go team by team. We'll build a lineup and we'll get out of here.
Let's do it.
All right. By the way, Jacob, I don't know if that is me or you that messed that sidebar up. That is you. Can we take tight end out of there? Thank you. All right. So Broncos, 11-point dogs, coming off yet another bad loss. Sean Payton took over, and this was the Payton Hackett matchup last week. Do you remember the remarks that Payton made about Hackett when he took over the Broncos?
Yeah, just unnecessary, setting yourself up to get buried in the future. I don't know why he ever did that, but anyway, he did it. Now it's funny.
Basically saying that everything they did under Hackett was going to be changed. Well, are the Broncos 0-5?
I believe so, yeah.
They're 0-5, right? Yeah, I think they've lost. Are they 1-4? Who'd they beat? Who?
Oh, yeah, they beat the Bears.
Oh, they did. They came back and beat the Bears. That's right. Yes. The Bears were up like 21-7, and the Broncos came back and won. Good call. Thank you, Jacob. Yes, they're 1-4. Okay, and barely scraped out a win in that game. You know what's funny though is every 1-point loss to the Raiders, 2-point loss to Washington. They had that Hail Mary to Brandon Johnson with an opportunity to tie it on the 2-point conversion. That failed. Obviously, Miami just ran them off the field. Chicago 3-point win. Jets 31-21 loss, but that was close throughout the game. This is, again, a bad football team that finds ways to lose, Matt. Not finds ways to grind out a win. They find ways to lose. But on a showdown slate, we're talking about it because we have no alternatives. And now you look at a guy in Russell Wilson who has Cortland Sutton only targeted 3 times. Judy was the guy getting the bulk of opportunities last game. Marvin Mims, 1 target, played 32% of snaps. Explain that to me, please. And then the backfield here with Javonte Williams and Pirine, assuming McLaughlin doesn't get a lot of work now that even though he's looked good, with Javonte Williams back, where do you want to start? Should we just start at Wilson here and work our way through the positions?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Well, I'm looking at the top single game, a showdown and single game plays tool over on Stochastic. Russell Wilson, 8% captain ownership. That's actually really low for his price point on a showdown slate, but we only have him as 6.9% optimal in the captain spot, 10% top play probability. I guess the only thing that stands out to me is Patrick Mahomes, 39% top play probability. He just hasn't been like he's good. They're winning games, but he hasn't been great this year. He's been underwhelming by Mahomes standards. So what are you doing with Russell Wilson here? Looking at the numbers that we've got in the top plays and single game tool.
And these change throughout the day, which I think on this particular slate, you might see this go even further ownership-wise in favor of Kelce and Mahomes. Like, who out there wants to play Broncos? And then what are your alternatives in the captain spot? Kansas City runs a nasty rotation at every single position except quarterback and tight end. So you've got Mahomes and Kelce as your 2 clear studs on this slate. I mean, the Broncos have been atrocious. Wilson's been bad. Like, how many people are going to click guys not named Kelce and Mahomes in captain on a slate that really has no pricing restrictions? That's the first thing I'm thinking about here. And while Russell Wilson's negatively leveraged in the captain, I want to see where this goes throughout the day. I think there's maybe a chance that Wilson comes in under-owned even at this position. Right now, he looks like a fantastic play in the flex. But ultimately, I'm going to end up playing Wilson because people are so sour on him. There's just so much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm in complete agreement with you. It's not fun, but what if his ownership for a quarterback at that price? We've seen a lot worse quarterbacks at this price with a lot higher ownership and a lot lower projection. So I'm not necessarily sure what to make of it. And to be fair, last year Russell Wilson against Kansas City, and I know they have a good defense, but he had a really strong game in week 14 against them. It's only 1 game, but I specifically remember that because we went into this being like, yeah, this team once again has nothing. He does have some rushing ability. We saw that earlier in the season. They are still going to throw the ball. I don't really know what outside of the fact that the Broncos are bad would make you not want to play Wilson this season. And another thing. Russell Wilson, just from a fantasy perspective, has he been any worse than than Patrick Mahomes? I know that sounds nuts. Patrick Mahomes is a far superior quarterback than Russell Wilson. From a fantasy point perspective, they are identical all season long. And a lot of that is because the Broncos are forced to play from behind in a lot of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can dive into any of the efficiency metrics you want with Wilson. But at the end of the day, not enough people are clicking his name for his price-adjusted projection. And sometimes we see steam on players throughout the day. I think that's far more likely to happen to the Chiefs than Wilson. If anything, I think the steam might actually work in Russell Wilson's favor today where he comes in under-owned. I would be very surprised to see it go the other direction. So I 100% agree with you. Game script should definitely work in his favor. They're 10.5-point underdogs. Chiefs have a good defense, but at a certain point in the game, you're playing from behind. You need to throw regardless. So I still think Wilson is a fine play. If the slate started right now with these current ownership numbers, I would look to him in the flex, but I'll be monitoring these closely throughout the day and definitely playing some captain. But depending on whether these Chiefs steam or not, that'll depend on how much.
So what, could you see yourself getting more Russell Wilson at captain if we see more Chiefs coming up?
Yeah, and again, this depends on your field size. If you're playing small stuff, just probably play Mahomes or Kelsey in the captain. But if you're playing anything that even like approaches 50,000 entries, 100,000 entries, you should be looking at some of these contrarian options. And I think Wilson's a really good one. He's also harder to play. If you're doing things like correlation, stacking, whatever, playing in with receivers, you've got Sutton and Judy, who are both expensive, and then a complete logjam behind him. So he's pretty hard to play a captain, which I personally like. I think it leads to people being a little risk averse and not clicking his name. So yeah, larger fields, I love Wilson, and I will come in over the field.
We're getting a little just kind of game theory talking a little bit once we work through these teams, because, you know, the Travis Kelce injury, assuming he plays, is he going to be 100%? Patrick Mahomes at that price point and captain, you know, can we do some weird stuff? We'll see. We'll build a lineup as well. But for the pass catchers for the Broncos, you know, it's Courtland Sutton, it's Jerry Jeudy, and then once you get past that, is there anybody that we can reliably look at and go, yeah, you know, these guys are great plays today? I mean, Brandon Johnson played over 50% of the snaps last week. For some reason, Marvin Mims is just getting no opportunities whatsoever, despite the fact that he looks like their best downfield threat right now. Looking at price points on these guys as well, Brandon Johnson is cheap. Mims, it's hilarious because Mims used way less, but he's not that cheap. He's 4,600 compared to Brandon Johnson at 1,200. Adam Trautman playing 90% of snaps last week, targeted 5 times, got it in the end zone as well. He's 2,800. So there are options here beyond Jeudy and Courtland Sutton in the pass game. It's just, are they going to get, 2 targets is really the biggest issue.
I think you definitely want to focus your attention on Sutton and Jeudy for all the reasons you mentioned. They're the safest. And then you can mix and match those guys for larger fields. I would prefer Sutton, and it's solely just based on price. I don't think the difference in role between Jerry Jeudy and Sutton warrants there being $1,200 in between them in terms of salary. It's once you get beyond that it's really hard. Luckily, they're all pretty cheap. Brandon Johnson, I think at any point he could see his role reduced for Marvin Mims. It's honestly a miracle it hasn't been reduced. And it's funny, you're like lamenting the Marvin Mims role. This is exactly what happened to him at Oklahoma. Those of you that play like college football DFS will remember vividly Marvin Mims on the field about 50% of the snaps, playing behind slot receivers like Drake Stoops, which is crazy that he's now been drafted into the exact same situation. Literally every time this guy touches the ball, there's an offensive explosion. So I still want to play Mims. He's so good and he's productive on such limited touches. What if they increase just a little bit? So I don't think you should X out Mims. He's definitely more of a field play, if you will, based on the potential for an increased role, which we haven't seen. So you're definitely taking a leap of faith. No interest in little Jordan Humphrey for me. I think he's another guy that could see his role axed. And then last thing here, I think Greg Dulcich is going to play tonight. So I don't know what that does to the Trautman snaps. It was a rotation prior to the injury that put Dulcich on IR. But, does that affect Mims, Johnson? He's a receiving tight end. I don't know. It's very muddy once you get beyond Sutton and Jeudy.
It was also just really weird before Dulcich got hurt because we thought that he was going to be the guy. And
I did not.
No?
No.
You're not a believer?
Sean Payton said he was going to use him in this Joker role.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joker role is like it's a good role for fantasy. It is a receiving role at tight end. But what you lack there is Trautman's your base tight end. A lot of times, a team's going to come to the play or come to the line of scrimmage with a run play. Depending on how the defense is playing it, you might get checked into a pass. Well, if Dulcich isn't on the field during that, he can't get a target. Trautman can. So having a limited tight end that only plays on certain allotment of snaps is a problem, which is why I didn't like Dulcich to begin the year. And none of the Denver beats expected him to take a full-time role either. I think this is people just wishful thinking with him. Anyway, that has nothing to do with tonight.
No, for sure. Well, I only brought it up because Peyton brought Adam Trautman over. He coached him in New Orleans, and he didn't really use him there either as a pass catcher. So
I hate these coaches. Like, what is in Las Vegas and in Denver, all you have to do is play for either New England or New Orleans, and you can play for these teams. I mean, like, what are these coaches doing?
I know. To your point about Mims, though, I'll go back to Monday Night Football or was it Thursday? Who played on Monday? I don't know. Oh, it was last Thursday, where I talked about Darnell Mooney just having the ability to blow things open. Now, granted, he ended up being terrible, but he was targeted 3 times down. If you're looking at deep passes, right? Ball travels 20 plus yards in the air. He had 3 of them. DJ Moore had 4. The problem is he caught 3 of them for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. Darnell Mooney caught none of them, and I think 2 of them weren't even catchable. But the opportunities were there, so I have no problem looking back on that and going, hey, I had 3 deep targets in a game where Chicago put up a ton of points. I can live with that any day of the week. Similarly, with Marvin Mims, if you just get one like we did against Washington, he had a 60-yard touchdown. And then he also had like a 53-yard reception. But a 60-yard touchdown, that's all you need. That is all you need at that price point. And then he had 3 for 73 against Miami, 2 for 47. One of those was like a 48-yard reception. He had a -1 in the other. So he's had, in the last 4 games, don't count last week, and also Jets secondary is elite. We know that. But in weeks 2 through 4, 60-yard long. He also had a 53 in the same game, a 38, a 48. This guy can break off huge receiving plays.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really confused what Denver's doing with him. Sean Payton drafted Traquan Smith and forced him into this exact role with horrible play for years in New Orleans. Finally, he has a guy that can play the downfield role well. This guy's a wizard at downfield routes. And instead, we have to get Brandon Johnson and Little Jordan Humphrey onto the field. I don't know. We're not coaches, but it seems very hard to believe to me. At some point, you'd think this rises. He's very clearly better than Johnson and Humphrey. If he does play like a full snap share, God forbid, he's way underpriced. So, I mean, this is guesswork. I think he's worth a shot in some of your larger field tournaments. I don't think in small field you need to get to him. You can play just Chiefs guys or kickers and defenses at this price. But, I mean, Mims is always going to be enticing based on the talent.
Yeah, you're right. Are you worried about the weather in this game?
Not terribly. It didn't seem like it's going to debilitate these offenses. Keep your eye on it, I think, is how I would play it. Of course, always watch live before lock, but they'll have a better idea than we will.
Just seems
You're
like
on that, aren't you?
What?
You're on that, aren't you?
Yeah. It seems like the wind is the biggest concern here, but I don't know if we should be terribly concerned. Does it hurt a guy like Mims? Possibly. But again, if you're playing one game and there's no other games to choose from, you might just simply be in a position where you have to do it. Anyway, any other pass catchers you want to get to that stand out?
I don't think there's any that really are viable themselves. There's guys that sort of limit pass catchers. Like Chris Manhertz has a role for this team. He's a blocker, but he also takes off Greg Dulcich and Trautman from the field at certain times. So, I mean, tight ends for Denver are pretty greasy. I think Troutman's probably my favorite, as crazy as that is. He's the only one that has like a consistent role. Otherwise, not really. Little Jordan Humphrey's almost getting squeezed out. Denver does some weird stuff because Sean Payton's a moron.
And I agree with you guys in chat. I do not give a single shit about this Taylor Swift stuff. It is beyond nauseating at this point. Like the Adam Schefter, it'll be like 1:00 in the afternoon. The games are starting, and he's like, Travis Kelce gained another 300,000 followers on Instagram this week. The Taylor Swift effect. It's like no one gives a shit about any of this. It's maybe Adam Schefter's just trying to get Swiftie followers to follow him so he can bolster his account. I don't know. Have you been enjoying this? Like, have you been following closely the Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce saga?
No, it's gone like right over my head. I don't
You
even
think
like
they
I
would
don't even
be-
give it I don't even give it the space in my mind for thoughts.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't either. Maybe I shouldn't have even mentioned it. Anyway, Broncos backfield. By the way, guys, if you haven't done so yet, take a second, hit that thumbs up, show us some love around here for a little Broncos-Chiefs action tonight, and subscribe to the channel. Broncos running backs. All right, so Javonte Williams missed last game. So you saw McLaughlin, you saw Samaje Perine. McLaughlin had a nice game. We saw a nice, it was like a 20-yard receiving touchdown or whatever that was. He ended up playing only 33% of snaps, but got some touches. Samaje Perine, 60% of snaps. Now that Williams is back, do you have any real feel for what this split looks like? Because in my opinion, before Javonte Williams got hurt, it really seemed to me, forget about snaps, look at opportunities, look at actual touches, particularly on the ground. It looked like Javonte Williams was beginning to pull away, with the clear top role in this offense, especially if they weren't just getting smoked. Like, throw the Miami game out the window. Who cares about that? But as far as the other games go, it felt that way. He's back. Do you think do you think this ends up being a 3-man committee, or does McLaughlin just kind of go back to watching from the sidelines for the most part?
I think it's a 3-way committee to some degree, but you're making some assumptions. We don't believe in Sean Payton's ability to evaluate talent of these players. If we went solely based on talent and what we've seen, McLaughlin would play above Samaje Perine. But that wasn't the case last week, and I don't know if it's going to be the case moving forward. I think if I were ranking these guys, it's Javonte Williams 1, Perine 2, McLaughlin 3, and I would expect something like, 50% of the opportunities for Williams, and maybe 30 Perine, McLaughlin 20, something in that range with a 3-way committee. But man, I don't know how he's going to split up the touches here. I agree with you that Williams is most likely to lead the backfield, but then we have to factor in price. 7,200 for Williams, 7K for McLaughlin. It's not like Perine's cheap either. He's at 5K flat. If this is anything close to a 3-way committee, all of these guys are too expensive for this game. It's not a spot I like getting to. I imagine I'll have the most of Javonte Williams just as the potential to lead this backfield. But man, tough matchup. Kansas City strong up front with Chris Jones back. They're huge underdogs, and now you're factoring in a 3-way committee with elevated prices. Just very, very hard to get to these guys.
It is. I have a slightly different opinion than you, though. I think that Javonte Williams at his price is very reasonable. Here's one reason for this, and this is another thing that kind of plays into what I was thinking. He was on the field for 8 snaps before getting hurt in that Chicago game, right? He touched the ball 5 times on 8 plays. Like 5 times in 8 plays before he went down. Is it possible that McLaughlin gets worked in? Yes. But what do I like if I had to ask myself, and I think you already pointed this out, what is the most likely outcome here as far as touches go? I think the most what scenario am I playing for? I think I would play for the scenario that this team is terrible. They're constantly losing games. Maybe Javonte Williams is that spark. Now that he's back, I think he probably could have played on Sunday, but they were like, let's just save him for Thursday. Perine hasn't been good. I know he had a nice game as a pass catcher last time out. He also lost a fumble. But largely he hasn't been great. He's been terrible on the ground. I think you could see a game here. And this is just pure speculation, but 5 touches on 8 snaps last game before getting hurt for Williams. I think there's a very realistic possibility that Javonte Williams comes out here and sees the most touches he's seen this year if the game stays remotely competitive.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. I don't know what Sean Payton's going to do with these touches. I thought he should have done this a while ago. Javonte Williams has been practicing since like minicamp. Yeah. He's clearly removed from the injury. It's just the whims of Sean Payton is how this backfield goes. Our projections don't like any of these guys, and what I would say is this is a very volatile situation. You have a take on this. I would use our tools to boost Javonte Williams if you think that's the way it goes. And I honestly could see it going the way you say. I just have no idea what's in Sean Payton's head right now.
Right. And you're right. You might need to use it to boost him because he is a negatively leveraged play in our tools. I get that. It makes sense. This offense is doesn't function. Williams coming off a very minor injury, but coming off an injury. I don't know. Plus, if you guys want to take advantage of all of our tools, you already know how to do it. Ownersbox.com, baby. You sign up with the link in the description or chat. You deposit a minimum of $10. I would recommend, if you have the means, take advantage of their up to $500 first match deposit bonus. Get in their Showdown contest tonight. Obviously, check out the big overlay that we've been seeing on these main slate contests. That's a huge one. Dead money is the best kind of money when it comes to DFS, hands down. And get all of our tools, all of them. The NFL lineup simulator, which it has every slate, like every Showdown slate, everything we've got covered in that. The post contest simulator, which is awesome, has really helped me refine my game since we released that. Ownership, player projections, boom bust tool, top stack, single game tools, which are all really simulation tools in their own right. And we've had them forever. They're the best ones you're going to find. Premium Discord lineup generator, everything, guys. The entire week is free. Your minimum deposit is $10 over on Owner's Box. It's that simple. If you're not there yet, check it out. We had a guy, I mentioned this to Neil yesterday, on the Monday night Showdown slate between the Packers and Raiders. He hit us up in the chat and he was like, yo, can you talk Owner's Box for a second? What do the Sims think? So I ran the Sims, Matt, during the show for Owner's Box, and I screenshotted it. I sent it over to Jordan because we're going to get different results. He put it up on the screen. I was like, here are the top 3 Sims results. This guy is watching from the parking lot after his softball game in his car, puts a lineup in, chops first $1,750 just by using the top lineup that I read on the show off the screen from the Owner's Box contest or lineup simulator tool.
That is absolutely insane. This is the first time I'm hearing this story. I know the tools are powerful, but man, doing that guy a real solid as he's in the parking lot entering lineups from his phone. It must be nice to be that guy.
He just heard it. I was like, here's our highest simulated ROI lineup for Owner's Box this week. He goes, fuck it, I'll play it. Plays it and ends up winning. They've had a lot of overlay. They have awesome super flex contests for the bigger slates, which means there's no defense. You don't have to get burned by playing the Titans or not playing the Saints. I could go on and on about that shit. It's been the bane of my existence this season with awesome lineups. You could super flex in quarterbacks, run them naked, even if it's like a Justin Fields or a rushing type. And tonight, some really solid Showdown contests if you wanted to get into that as well. But more than anything, guys, you're getting everything, all of our tools for the free. And I say it a million times. Thursday is the best day to do it because you get the Thursday slate. You get the Sunday morning London slate. You get the Sunday main slate, Sunday afternoon, Sunday primetime game, Monday night, and then all the tools updated for the next Thursday. That's 7 slates right there, even if you're not including any of the crazy, weird express slates and stuff like that. So check it out. Link in the description and chat. Minimum deposit $10, but take advantage of the overlay and that deposit bonus if you have the means to do so and get all of our tools for free. There's no promo code needed. As long as you use the link, you'll get the free week, just so you know. All right. Anything else for the Broncos that we haven't touched on that you think is pertinent here?
I don't think so. I think we hit it all.
Okay, so do I. Final thoughts on this Broncos team. If you had to summarize the whole Broncos team today, because they're 11-point dogs, the target distribution is weird on this team. The running back situation in the backfield is weird. Russell Wilson actually hasn't been bad, but he's not getting a lot of ownership and he's not that expensive. And the tight end position, especially if Dulcich is back, like how would you summarize how you're playing it right now?
I think it's going to be contrarian to do things like 3-3 builds, 4-2 builds in favor of Denver. My favorite plays are flat out just Russell Wilson, Sutton, and Judy. I'd be looking to get a lot of those 3 in large field tournaments. And then once you start mixing and matching the Brandon Johnsons, Dulcich's, Mims, the running backs, that's where I think you can really differentiate if you're playing stuff like of the Millie Maker size field, which is what I'll be doing in large field. For smaller field stuff, focusing my attention largely on, in this order, I would play them: Wilson, Sutton, and Judy.
That 4-2 build is super intriguing because when you really think about how this works, if this game does shoot out, and it can, nobody expected the Jets to make that a 1-possession game and keep it close last week against on Sunday Night Football last week, or like 2 weeks, whatever it was ago, against the Chiefs, right? Nobody expected that. and they did. It's a divisional game. Football's weird. There's a lot of parity. Strange things happen in these contests. If it happens to stay close, you know what? Maybe you would want Russell Wilson with like 3 other offensive players or something if you can do it, compared to the Patrick Mahomes, where you're blindly throwing darts at everyone not named Travis Kelce unless you're going to Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah, it makes this a really fun large field slate. Even when you think guys like Rashee Rice are emerging for this team, boom, their routes are cut. This team is right back to the 6-man rotation at receiver. Even when you think things are working out for certain players, they're not. It's Kelce, it's Mahomes, and it's everyone else. And maybe Pacheco, I actually like him too. I know he's a guy that you're really interested in tonight.
Yeah, also, least shocking thing in the world for a guy like Rashee Rice to get steamed and then not do anything. Like, least shocking thing in the world at all. Am I wrong though? Like, that team behind Kelce, there is zero certainty. Not only is there zero certainty, there's zero way to even try to figure things out. You're better off just going, you know what? Maybe I'll go with Justin Watson and he catches a long touchdown. Like, I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the pass catchers here for Kansas City. I want you to see something. So on the season, this is amazing. There are 8 players on this offense that have between 11 and 24 targets. Travis Kelce has 37. Understandably, he missed week 1. But then you have 8 players between 11 and 24 targets. There's nobody north of 24 targets once you get below Travis Kelce. There's nobody. Like, if you want to contrast that to some other teams, like just take Philadelphia, for example, that's fine. This is what it looks like. A.J. Brown, 51, Devontae Smith, 34, Dallas Goedert, 28, Swift, 17, Gainwell, 10. You want to talk about Kansas City? Kelce, 37, Rice, 24, Tony, 19, Moore, 17, Watson, 16, Noah Gray, 15, Isaiah Pacheco, 13, Jerick McKinnon, 12, MVS, 11, Justin Ross, 6, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 5. There's no rhyme or reason to this right now.
Nope. And I don't know week to week how you predict it. It's not even like, all right, a guy's trending this direction. Maybe his role continues to ascend. It's literally, all right, Rashee Rice leads the team in snaps and routes 1 week. Boom, the next week is MVS. Then, maybe it's Kadarius Toney. Maybe it's specific game planning for these guys and their skill sets, which is over my head at the coaching level. But from an analytical level and trying to predict which one's on the field the most, you might as well roll a dice.
Yep. And by the way, I wasn't even saying that Rice was bad last week. He did. I believe
he's been bad this year. All the things he's done well, he drops a ton of passes. People give Kadarius Toney flack, and I personally kind of just rubs me the wrong way when they don't do the same thing for Rashee Rice, because he also drops a million passes.
For sure. All I meant was he got into the end zone and the fantasy production wasn't bad. But as far as like opportunities and routes and targets went, it was no different than anything else we saw all season. It was 5 targets and it was 4 receptions for 33 yards. He just happened to get in the end. But you didn't see an expanded role for him, is what I meant by the least shocking thing ever.
Oh yeah, you definitely didn't.
Let's try and figure this out. We'll start with Travis Kelce. He's questionable. Now, guys, as we all know, playing on a short week. So this isn't like he's even had a full week to recover from this ankle. There was also reports that at practice on Wednesday, he was, or it might have been Tuesday, that he was heavily taped up, his ankle heavily taped up. My guess is he plays. Do you have any concerns that he's not close to 100% and it affects how he plays?
For sure. I mean, he already had, the reason we like Kelce is the opportunity metrics. His efficiency has been bad. He is a below average tight end based on all like major yards per route run efficiency metrics. It's just like the target rate is so high that it doesn't matter that he's bad. Mahomes is constantly targeting him. So, I mean, last week he missed the majority of the game. When he came back, he had like 5 targets and a touchdown. Mahomes has eyes for nobody else. So even if this guy is a little long in the tooth, he's getting targeted so much that we need to be cognizant of this. What I'm really concerned about is him coming off the field. Like if he's off the field, limited by this injury at all, that's where things get really worrisome for me. So there is downside, but at the end of the day, like what are our alternatives? You can go to Russell Wilson, who I do like, but I mean, once we get beyond that, we don't trust any other Chiefs pass catchers. I like Isaiah Pacheco, but it's not like he's risk-free. You've got McKinnon there who siphons off quite a bit of work still. It's pretty risky, and there's two players I think locked in with good roles, assuming health, Mahomes and Kelsey, and then everybody else. Wilson would be in a slight tier below for me. So I'm still going to play him. I'm going to just try to not like absolutely have my night ruined by him, like 100% of lineups. I won't do something like that in case he's hurt, but man, if he suits up, I'm going to have a really difficult time not clicking him.
It's going to suck too.
And if you don't click him, I think you should be very interested in Noah Gray.
Yeah, that's a great point. Maybe Noah Gray does end up being the guy in a spot like this that gets more opportunities, because you know what the good thing about Noah Gray is? Even if Travis Kelce plays, Noah Gray isn't incapable of getting some opportunities. The problem with Noah Gray is that you're not getting, you're not getting bottom of the barrel price tag on him. That's what's tough. In another spot, in another world, Noah Gray is a really, really, really cheap option. Problem here, he's 4,400. And for the target share that we've seen from him, he absolutely needs a touchdown. And even a touchdown might not be enough at that price point if he has like 2 for 10 and a score. That's the problem. He's going to be cheap all of the time if it's on a showdown. He was $600 against the Jets, Matt. $600 on that showdown slate for Sunday Night Football. He's 4,400 now because of the uncertainty surrounding Travis Kelce. That makes it tough.
Absolutely. I think he's a little overpriced, but he's still a guy I think you can definitely click in tournaments. He's not going to project as well as Kadarius Toney, MVS, any of the other cheap receivers, but he's a guy where you can see a clear path to upside because of the volatility in the projections. At the end of the day, somebody has to go into these projections, click inputs. The models do not know what happens to Travis Kelce if he's hurt, nor do the people who are going in and clicking this. If you personally think Travis Kelce's at a little less than 100% or maybe more injured than some of the projections think, you should be boosting Noah Gray. And that's where some of the volatility in these projections comes. And that's why I like our tools. You can actually make these adjustments on the back end in the Sims and boost certain players for things you think might happen. Because at the end of the day, these are range of outcomes and the simulations can capture them the best they can, but they still require inputs. And if the inputs are off even a little bit and you have a better read on this, take advantage of that.
Exactly. Right. It's still actual people, providing the inputs, like you're saying. People think the projections are just like a magic wand,
I do projections. I do all the college football projections. I can guarantee you that's not how they work.
I will say, though, I use the boost feature and the deboost feature a lot. I don't go wild. I'm not going down every single player and doing it. But if there are a few spots that I think are uniquely positioned to really help me, if I'm right about it, I will definitely boost players or deboost players if I have to. I definitely will.
For sure. And all that to say, bringing it back to Noah Gray, he's a player with positives in the range of outcomes that occur because Kelsey's a little more injured and vice versa. Kelsey, I think, has more downside than other players on the same front because of the injuries. But the pricing, if you just look at a median projection on Noah Gray, yeah, he's going to be too expensive on the slate. And for those of you playing small field, single entry, stuff like that, you probably don't even need to consider this. But for your large fields, there is some upside with Noah Gray. He plays a ton, even when Kelsey's out there. They use a lot of 12. Even like Blake Bell plays a fair amount. Chiefs are a weird team, man. That hurts the receivers too, honestly.
Big time. I mean, could this have been any worse to start? And by the way, Noah Gray led the team in routes run last week.
That's insane, man.
Yeah.
I knew it was close. I did not know he led the team. I knew he played a ton.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey went out for a bit, but yes, Noah Gray ran 30 routes. No one else hit 30 routes. MVS 29, Sky Moore 23, Watson 23, Kelsey 23, Toney 17. Rice ran 10 routes in that game.
That's concerning.
But
really concerning.
It is. You know what sucks though? Ross, Rice, McKinnon, Pacheco, Toney, Kelsey, Watson, Moore, Valdez-Scantling. No, that's 10 guys that are out there running routes. And I'm not even sure if there were more for guys that weren't targeted. I'm only seeing the guys who had at least one target. That's just absolutely disgusting. And you know what? Could things be any worse for Sky Moore right now? Or Marquez Valdez-Scantling? This is a guy that came over last year. I know you and I both thought that he's never going to be like a proxy for Tyreek Hill. We never even made a suggestion that he could be half as good. But I think we both thought, because I remember doing a lot of best ball shows with you, that, hey, you know what? He could be the field stretcher with a great quarterback. He could have some big games from time to time. I can't remember the last big game MVS has had. He doesn't even get targeted.
Yeah, I can't remember either. He's a strict decoy out there. He is, I mean, his target rate is behind like most of these guys. What does he have? 11 targets on the year. He's like 9th on the team in targets. It's horrifyingly bad for Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't think that's going to get better. We have a long sample of MVS. So what do we do with the rest of the guys?
His target share is 6%, by the way, Matt. 6%.
That's really low. And I don't think it changes. He's one of the more expensive receivers on this team. Like, you can definitely go cheaper. I would rather go Justin Watson than him at this point.
I would too. I would rather go Watson for sure. How could you not? What do you do with Sky Moore, though? Disgusting output from him all year. He has a solid 10% target share. And for those of you guys wondering, Travis Kelce has a 25% target share. The next closest on the year is 13%, Rashee Rice. Kadarius Toney, 10. Sky Moore, 10%. Watson, 8. Noah Gray, 8. Pacheco, 7. McKinnon, Valdez, 6. Or Valdez-Scantling, 6. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I'm going to play Kadarius Toney. I think he is very clearly the second most talented pass catcher on the team behind Kelce, number 1 among receivers. I don't think it's even remotely close. The guy had an egregious game with drops, and since then he's cleaned it up. I mean, I don't know how they don't play this guy more. Like, we're talking about Justin Watson, who is a very good real life player, but he doesn't have enough talent to like break a game for you. MVS is a bad field stretcher. Rashee Rice is a rookie with, I mean, just as many problems, if not more, than Kadarius Toney regarding the drops. He's been horrendous dropping the ball. Then you've got Sky Moore, who I think at this point is just a pure draft bust. I mean, he was overdrafted coming out of a MAC school. And then you've got Justin Ross, an undrafted free agent out of Clemson. A lot of talent, but the guy hasn't played football in like 7 years, and now he's coming back and getting 6 snaps a game. I'll take my bets with Kadarius Toney, who's not expensive. He is the best target per route rate on the team. He's very clearly just the best player. Like, at some point, Andy Reid has to get this guy the ball more. They just don't have anybody that can make plays outside of Kelce.
You're 100% right. If I'm choosing between any of these guys, as gross as it feels, Kadarius Toney is your like Rashee Rice too, but you at least have to be cognizant of the fact that he ran 10 routes last week and was, ended up having 4 for 33 and a touchdown. So sure, when he's out there, he's getting thrown the ball. But when you have that erratic opportunities as far as being on the field, you need to score if you're Rashee Rice. You need to. And it's, you know what else? It's not like he's getting targeted. It's not like he's converting on deep targets downfield. If you had this will be fun. If you had to rank these receivers today for Kansas City, is it basically Toney? I would probably go Toney, Rice, Watson, and then just everyone else.
Yeah, I'm close to you. I would go Toney, Watson, Rice. And that's mainly just because for some reason Rice is 6,400.
True.
Like, you're saving $2.5K going down to Toney. You're saving almost $4,000 playing Justin Watson. Like, that's going to get you a Cortland Sutton, another stud, a Wilson, a Mahomes, whatever it is, somebody you feel better about. And Watson doesn't come off the field. For everything he lacks as a player, talent-wise, he's trustworthy in whatever Andy Reid asks him to do. He's not a guy that's seen his route share dip oftentimes throughout the year. So I think he's honestly second. And then Rice, I would put third. I'm going to go MVS fourth, and then Sky Moore, the rest of these guys, like, just roll some dice.
Let's talk about running backs. We may have slightly different opinions here. I like Pacheco a lot today. The Denver Broncos run defense, it's not bad. It's the worst. It's undeniably terrible on every front. Dude, they're allowing through 5.9 yards per attempt, which is crazy. Because it's not like, there's some defenses where they allow a decent amount of yards per attempt, but it's also like you look at the defense overall and it's pretty good, and the game scripts have been super weird, and they're still not allowing a ton of rushing yards. And it's like, oh, this is because, teams rush a little early, they have success, but then this team's so good that they go up and then teams are forced to throw, whatever. 938 rushing yards allowed by the Broncos this year. The next closest team is at 770. Like, almost 200 rushing yards more than the next closest team. You take a look at the Broncos too, just game by game production allowed, 234 rushing yards by Breece Hall and the Jets, 174 rushing yards from Chicago, 350 rushing yards from Miami. You heard that right. 350, 122 to Washington. The only one that they somewhat locked down was Josh Jacobs with 61 total rushing yards in that game, but the whole Raiders offense stunk. Another thing to consider, while you do have Jerick McKinnon back there, and I think McKinnon is always a fantastic showdown play. You can fight me on that as much as you want. There's going to be a game or two this year where he just has multiple scores. He already did it once, as a matter of fact. But over the last 2 weeks, Isaiah Pacheco has 40 touches. 40 touches. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has 7 total, and Jerick McKinnon has 8. So it doesn't mean they're not involved. But you're talking like average last 2 weeks, 4 touches per game from those guys, and 20 for Isaiah Pacheco, facing the worst run defense in football. I know this is a pass-first team, and I know he's not heavily featured as a pass catcher, but neither is anyone in this offense, not named Travis Kelce. I think the big potential for Isaiah Pacheco, despite an elevated price point, is 100% in play today.
I agree with you. I think he's actually my 4th favorite captain once you get beyond Kelce, Mahomes, and Wilson, for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. They use McKinnon a fair amount, but he's almost exclusively a pass-catching back. He doesn't have more than 3 carries in any game this year. And you mentioned the multi-touchdown game. He had 2 receiving touchdowns on 3 targets against Chicago. Talk about an outlier outcome.
Yep.
2 receiving touchdowns on 3 targets. That's insane. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire sucks. We've seen Pacheco completely ice him. Unless this game's like a blowout, I don't think you even need to worry about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like a blowout in the Chiefs' favors, I think the time you probably see more CEH. So yeah, I mean, it's the best matchup on the field of any individual player. Workload's been solid for him. McKinnon's not siphoning off early down work, and he's not even siphoning off that much receiving work at this point. I think you can play Pacheco with confidence. I would rank him 4th among the captains.
Would you play Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or Pacheco and McKinnon in the same lineup?
Yeah, I think you can, because there's so much rotation at every other position. What's the opportunity cost? 3 targets?
Yeah, I think it's going to be different. For me, if I had to, if I had to go somewhere there, I want to say Pacheco and McKinnon, obviously, but Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just really, really cheap because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is $1,000. But I think it makes more sense with McKinnon's ability to get targets in the red zone, even if he's not frequently targeted like he was at times last year. I think it's viable. And only because it's even with McKinnon, it's not like, he needs to get past this guy who has a 25% target share, this guy who's at 20, this guy's at 18. Like, maybe this just happens to be the game where McKinnon gets 5 targets and MVS and Sky Moore combined for 1, and Rashee Rice has 2. Like, it's just, there's no telling how it plays out.
No telling. I agree with you. I would, if you forced me to pick a second running back with Pacheco, it would be McKinnon, but I can see the roster construction favorability for going down to CEH price-wise. It's tough, but that's a construction I will be using a decent amount in larger field.
Anybody else that we haven't touched on that you think deserves some conversation? Or any kind of game theory that we haven't talked about? You got into the whole Broncos potential 4-2 spot. You got into we've gotten into a bunch of different things. I'm just wondering if there's any ways to get unique without the players in the lineup being, 0.01% owned guys. Like, okay, this build looks way different, but there's nobody I'm seeing that is, sub 1% owned. They're trying to go crazy like that.
I do think anything that has Broncos more than Chiefs is going to be very contrarian today. Most of the Broncos are negatively leveraged. That's because of the timeshares at the positions. But you still have three studs, studs, quotes, three good players, expensive players, condensed players, whatever you want to call it. We're also Wilson, Sutton, and Judy. I think even if you add a kicker or a defense onto those three, you're going to be contrarian because you've only got two Chiefs. And then I think if you leave salary on the table, which is generally contrarian, today even more so, you have a lot of guys that are in rotational roles, especially for the Chiefs at like this 2.5 to 6K range, with Rashee Rice being the higher end of that. You play like Mahomes, two of those guys, Russell Wilson, Sutton, and then another cheap guy, a kicker or defense. You can pretty easily leave salary on the table in a lineup that's actually fairly live. So that's another thing I would look at.
Is there any way we can responsibly talk about this Chiefs offense in the passing game? Like in the sense of really the right plays or the wrong. Like, I think you're right about Kadarius Toney, but there's still really little rhyme or reason here. If you're playing one lineup or three lineups, in a 3-max or something, or you're playing 3 single entry contests and you have a different lineup in all of them, are you just holding your nose and looking to some of these pass catchers? Because I don't know if there's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I still rank Toney number one, but it's hard. I mean, like, I'm not going to come out here and say you should play Toney as the locked in guy in this spot. To your point, like, we don't feel great about any of these guys.
No.
So yeah, in good faith, it's hard. I rank them because that's what the people want, but I don't have a high confidence interval in that ranking.
No. And I'm just, I'm just looking at utility ownership. Why don't I go utility optimal probability? So you've got Toney at 21. And by the way, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth highest on the slate. Ninth highest. And that's the highest for receivers for the Chiefs. Watson at 18, Sky Moore at 15, Rashee Rice at 11, MVS at 10, Noah Gray at 3. There's none of them that are really up there compared to some of these top guys. Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy may not excite you, but you at least know that one of them could have an 8 or 9 or 10 target game. It's in the cards. If I were to ask you, hey, what is the likely, if I asked you to put a probability on what is the likelihood that a receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs has 7 or more targets today, where would you put it?
35%.
Okay.
Where would you put it?
7 or more targets for one of, not a pass catcher, but one of the receivers. Well, let's say a non-Travis Kelce pass catcher. 25%.
Yeah, it's really low.
I don't think it's happened yet this year.
35 might be a little generous, man. I don't know.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. Either way, it's low is what I'm saying. It's low.
Yeah, it's low.
Chiefs defense, kickers here. I think kickers are very much in play.
Me too. I agree. Chiefs defense a little expensive at 56, but it's still a showdown slate. I'm a little worried about their ownership against Wilson in this bad Denver offense. Chris Jones being back helps their pass rush. Got a turnover-prone quarterback side. That's a little just thing I'm watching throughout the day, making sure the Chiefs aren't like hyper-owned. If they are, then I'll definitely pivot to Butker and Lutz. I think they're both two fine kickers. Broncos defense, I don't have a ton of interest in even at their price. I won't lie, facing Mahomes. Although he's been a little lackluster this year, he could absolutely demolish you at any point. So that's something I'm a little wary of. But yeah, like the kickers more than the defenses to sum it up.
What about Denver D?
I'm terrified of them.
Me too, but I think you have to at least be considering them.
I'm going to have to think about that for a long time today to get there.
Yeah, I get that, man. They've been horrible. All right, let's build a lineup. Before we do, though, are you located in the state of Colorado or New Jersey or Virginia or Ohio or Iowa or, more importantly, Kentucky? If so, you're eligible for a free $150 or $365 at Bet365. No, in all seriousness, if you guys are in those states, best offer out there right now for a sports book. Bet365, Colorado, Virginia, Ohio, New Jersey, and Iowa. You deposit $10, you bet 5, you have $150. It's that simple. If you win your bet, you get $150 from Bet365 as a new user, using the link in the description or in chat if you actually want to take advantage of this. If you lose your $5 bet, you have $150. It doesn't matter, win or lose. So my recommendation, just go play a big parlay. Those are the 5 states. The other state, Kentucky, you deposit $10, you bet $1, 10% of that $10, and now you have $365. Kentucky, new to sports betting, $365 on a $1 bet. That $1, you're just saying, do with this as you please. Who cares? I'm getting $365 on the other side. And the reason we stress this so often isn't just because it's an awesome offer, but it's twofold. One, if you bet sports, even if you do it casually, the whole point is to win money. So if you're just someone that's like, well, I don't need that, I do it casually, I'm only on one sports book. It's like, yeah, but you still want to win money. So when you lose that game by the hook because you didn't look at other sports books and you're only on DraftKings or FanDuel, you're not considering the fact that had you maybe bet that on another book, could have been Bet365 with the better number, you might have won because there was no hook on that line. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, or because there was a hook on the line, you're not losing to any of that stuff either or. You get my point. And the other biggest thing, free money. Bet365 is they're huge in the international betting space. They just recently came to the United States, so they're giving away free money. When these sports books give you free money, take their free money. Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, Iowa, and New Jersey, bet 5, get 150. Deposit 10, only bet 5, get 150. And if you're in Kentucky, deposit 10, bet 1, and get 365. Link in the description and in chat. Must be 21 years or older to gamble. 18 plus in Kentucky. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Let's go with, and by the way, shout out to Chris Williams. Thank you for gifting those memberships here on the channel. Thanks to all you guys who have been kind enough to hit that thumbs up and get us north well over 100. I think you're up for captain spot.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's go Pacheco.
Ooh, love it. All right. I'm going to go Wilson.
All right. I think you can only do 3 studs comfortably, but I still don't think we want to leave out Mahomes.
I'm fine with that. I am fine with leaving out Kelsey in some lineups though.
Same. We have to now.
Yeah, we have to. But I do think there is actually a path for Kelsey just to not have a good game and not be at full strength.
Agreed.
So I don't mind playing some lineups that way. All right. I'm not leaving you with a ton, but I want one of the big 2 pass catchers for Denver. I'm going to go Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, he's the cheaper one like that.
That's why I did it.
So we've got 2,800. I think I'm going to put in Justin Watson at 22. Won't give you a ton, but man, let's do that.
All right. See how it works. I like that. He is a guy that they throw deep to downfield. You know, he has a 25 plus yard reception in 4 of 5 games, 33 plus yards in 3 of his last 4. That's just his long reception. I like that. All right, we'll plug Watson in. Let's see what I have to work with here.
It's not much.
Man.
So I was going to go Brandon Johnson and then let you pick between kickers and Tony, but Watson, you got to pick a greasy guy now. I don't know.
No. That's fine. That's fine. I mean, I think if we're fading the Denver backfield in a spot like this, I mentioned earlier, I do like Javonte Williams. I think there's a path for him to get a lot of opportunities today, assuming he's good to go, and he is. You know, do I go Troutman and just get a second pass catcher with Russell Wilson is the question.
I would go either Troutman or Dulcich.
Yeah. If we wanted
or
to get
Brandon
weird,
Johnson,
if we're talking large field, then Dulcich, I think, is probably the play. That makes this lineup way different. I don't think many people do it at all if he's active. But
I agree with you.
Since we don't know if he's active, I'm going to go Adam Troutman here. Gives us Pacheco, Wilson, Mahomes, Sutton, Watson, and Troutman. Yeah, I don't hate that at all for a single entry tournament. I don't hate that one bit.
I actually like it quite a bit.
Me too. Hey guys, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski on Twitter. And make sure you spell it right. It's right under his name. Follow me at Lafayette_D, LOUGHY_D. Shout out to Jacob for producing this. I assume there's no MLB strategy show today, right? Because there's only one show in town. There's only one game after the Dodgers got swept. So I'm coming up again, 11 o'clock, matchup show, marathon matchup show. Stack your provisions now. Be there. Less than an hour right here on the Stochastic channel. Eric Lindquist and myself. You got anything else going on today on the Odd Shopper channel or whatever?
Yeah, dude, we've got college football Tuesday through Saturday, now through the end of Thanksgiving. So I'm doing betting videos for every single day, DFS videos every single day. You want to wet the beak, there's some really good college games this week, and highlighted by Oregon, Washington, 2 undefeated teams. Check those out.
Beautiful. Yeah, Odds Shopper, all one word, channel over on YouTube. We got you covered on everything. It's a great channel. I got my picks for every game video up. That came out yesterday. I'll have my picks for this game coming up in just a couple hours. So we're going to knock all that out. We got everything. Matt's got everything for college football. We got hockey, literally everything. Ben's got all of his stuff, Greg. We'll see you guys back here. Shout out to Jacob for producing this one. Monday morning, we'll be back. Showdown Strategy Show right here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. Appreciate you guys as always. Peace.